Hello everyone. I would just like to take this opportunity before we start our lesson to thank you guys for all the work that you guys have been doing. It has been really great working with you guys so far. And as we go into the second part of online learning these next few weeks, I'd like to encourage you guys to keep it up, and also don't be afraid to let me know if there are things that you think would help you out a little bit more, or any sort of lessons that you prefer to be done in a certain way. Just let me know. And I appreciate all you guys' work. I miss seeing you every morning. But we can at least still keep going with our mathematics. And let's start today with ratios and rates. Now, when we're talking about ratios and rates, a lot of times people lump them together. They consider rate pretty much the same thing as ratio, but they are different. And here's the main difference between them. When we are looking at a ratio, which looks pretty much the same as what you're going to see with A over B, mathematically they look pretty similar. A ratio is going to be comparing two similar things. So A over B will both be numbers that refer to the same sort of object. So for instance, you could say like 1 out of 4 people, and that would be 1/4 of people, right? And since 1 is talking about a person and 4 is talking about people, those are comparing the same things. Now, rates are different in that they're going to compare two different things. So we can talk about how many miles we've gone per hour. So like if you're going 70 miles per hour, that's 70 over 1, or 70 miles per 1 hour. And those are two different things. So that makes it a rate rather than a ratio. And you can also do this like dollars per slice. We frequently compare numbers to each other and objects to each other. So that's where rate comes in. Now, typically our language for the two is slightly different too. So when we're talking about ratio, we're going to talk about A to B. And when we're talking about rate, we usually say A per B. So like 1 mile per hour. That'd be really slow. Or 1 person to the 4 people is going to be the ratio. But let's jump into these, figure out how to set these equations, or I'm sorry, these expressions and comparisons up. So let's start with ratio. Let's say that our basketball team won 10 out of the 16 games that they played last year. We want to find the ratio of wins to losses. Now, always be careful. First off, we know that we're doing a ratio. And a ratio tells me that I'm going to have a number on the top and a number on the bottom, and they're going to be the same thing. So I have to compare like people to people, or in this case, games to games. Now, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you're comparing the right thing. So take your time here. I want wins to losses. And when you're doing this, you go in the order that it tells you. So for instance, since wins comes first, wins goes on the top. Since losses come second, losses go on the bottom. So now all I need to do to fill this in is fill in my wins along the top. And I know that they won 10 games. So I have 10 wins to how many losses? Now be careful here, because most of the time we see two numbers and we're like, must be those two numbers. But numbers have meaning, and you got to be careful that you're taking the right number here. They won 10 out of 16 games. That means that they didn't lose 16 games. This is the number of games they played. If they won 10 of those games, that means that 6 of those games they must have lost, because those are the other 6 games that make the 16. So our ratio of wins to losses is 10 to 16. Sometimes you'll also see this written as 10, semicolon, 6. So that would be another answer, and you can write it either way. I generally prefer this first way with the fraction, and that's just because it's easier to immediately plop into a problem. Now, for this one, ratios oftentimes you leave as they are instead of simplifying. Like, usually we reduce fractions, we'd say this is 5 over 3, but you don't have to with ratios, because a lot of times this provides more information. So for instance, if I'm looking at this number, I know that they played a total of 16 games just by looking at it, whereas if I simplify the fraction, I won't actually know how many games they played. So not always simplified. But let's try one more. Actually, I would like you to try this one. and show me your answer on a separate sheet of paper or on this note sheet. It's up to you. And then that's going to be one of the ones that you guys have for your homework today. And I'll provide your answer tomorrow. Now let's check out rate. Now we know that rates compare two different things, and hey, we use them all the time. Let's start with one of the ones that we use most often, and that is really to do with speed. So let's say that you run 10 kilometers in 50 minutes. We want to know your average speed in kilometers per minute. So here's what we're going to have to start with. If I want something as a rate, the unit is going to determine how my fraction will look. So if I want kilometers per minute, what it's saying is kilometers will be on the top, per is going to be that division sign, and minutes will be on the bottom. Once I have that, I can set up my then fraction. So I want kilometers on the top, and I know that 10 kilometers then will go along the top. And I'm going to include units. Because we have different units, it's good to keep units in. Now, along the bottom, I need minutes, and currently I have 50 minutes here. Now, there's a slight problem with this one. Well, this is your speed, 10 kilometers per 50 minutes. We don't typically say speed that way. What we usually want is the distance per hour or the distance per minute. And in fact, this problem specifically asks for the distance per minute. So that means I want this distance per 1 minute. And the easiest way to do that is simply dividing. So take 10, divide it by 50. And what that's going to do is that's going to give you a number over 1. And that is 0.2. So here I have my 0.2 over 1, right, when I simplify that. Well, we haven't changed our units. I'm still saying I can go 0.2 kilometers in that 1 minute that we have. And at that point, I would be done because I've got a rate that shows my speed in kilometers per minute. By the way, this frequently is written 0.2 kilometers per minute, where we take the number off and leave the units as a fraction. And actually what we found above is what we call a unit rate. It's a rate per 1 unit, or like 60 miles per hour, or here we took something that was just a general rate, 10 kilometers per 50 minutes, and we turned it into a unit rate, which is 0.2 kilometers per minute. It's over 1 minute, so it's a unit rate. And in order to go from a rate to a unit rate, all you have to do is divide. That's all it takes. So if we want to find the unit rate of each of the following, we're going to set up our rate first, find your general rate, and by the way, time almost always is on the bottom when we're talking about rates. Set up your rate first and then just divide. So if I have a plane flying 1,200 miles in 4 hours, what will my unit rate be? Do it just like the problem above and have this one written out as well in that paper to turn in for today. And I'm going to show you number 2 instead, because this one's a little bit less similar. So let's say you earn $45 for mowing 3 lawns, and what I want to know is the dollars per lawn. Well, just like before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take dollars per lawn, and I'm going to set up my general rate. Well, normally I get $45 for 3 lawns. So at this point, I can actually divide 45 by 3, and that's going to turn this into a unit rate. Now this gives me 15 over 1, which we know is the same as just 15. And since I'm over 1, that means I've gotten to a unit rate. But you must include units. Now we typically keep the dollar sign in front, so I'll just say dollars, $15 per lawn. But it wouldn't be incorrect to write $15 per lawn. It's just not our typical way of writing it. That's all I want you guys to do. Don't forget, I need to see number 2 under ratio, and number 1 under unit rate on a separate sheet of paper. Turn it in on Classroom for tomorrow. Now, I will not be online much today because we have several meetings to try to figure out how the rest of the school year will go. And because of that, it might take me a little bit longer to get back to you than normal. I will still be checking, but if you have to wait till tomorrow, still send that email today, and I'll just extend the assignment if you had a question that I couldn't get to. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I miss y'all.